Welcome to the Bear Talk, your go-to Chicago Bears podcast, where a father and son break down all things Bears, from Soldier Field to Sunday showdowns. I'm your host, Dylan Weaver, and I'm joined here with my dad. How you doing, Dad?
Doing great, Dill. How about you?
Not doing too bad. Another game week this week against the Lions. Ben Johnson makes his return. But before we jump into that episode, make sure to please pause the video, drop a like, comment, subscribe, drop your game day predictions heading into this week against the Lions. But let's start off here with the injury report. I will kind of go through it. Some big news for the Bears side. The Lions side looks like they're going to have everyone ready to go. But um, as far as our defense goes, it looks like T.J. Edwards and Jaylon Johnson are good to go for this Sunday, which will make that their season debut here, which is definitely good news to have. On the other side for the Bears, though, we are going to be missing Kyler Gordon yet again, still dealing with that calf injury. It's been about a week now because it happened Sunday right before the game last week. Um, so definitely something you don't want to hear, especially with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side of the field who plays that slot position a lot. So we're going to need another, big game out of McLeod, which he played pretty good last week. But definitely some bigger shoes to fill this week with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then on the Lions side, they do have Taylor Decker, one of their offense tackles, who is supposed to be starting this week. He is questionable still with that shoulder injury, probably going to play, but something to look out for. One of their linebackers looks to be more of a special teams / backup player, Trevor Nowoski. He's going to be out. And then for the Lions defense, another one that's questionable with a knee injury, which we don't like to prey on injuries, but it would be good if maybe he misses this game. Their safety, Kirby Joseph, is on that injury report as of yesterday as well, questionable with a knee injury. So looks like Joseph and Decker are going to be questionable. One player on the Bears side as well who looks like it's going to be a game time decision is going to be Grady Jarrett. He didn't practice all week. However, on Friday he was limited in practice. So hopefully we get him back for this game against the Lions. Definitely someone who is a big piece of our defense, especially in that middle with Jervon Dexter. Expect to see Andrew Billings if Jarrett's not going to be out there as much. It should be just like it was last year then with Big Bill and Jervon Dexter. But hopefully Grady Jarrett is good to go. Any concerns you have with some of the injuries going into the game, or kind of what I said? Obviously, Kyler Gordon's it hurts he's not out there, but it's better we got two starters back because last we were missing three of them, and the defense still looked great until that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, it's never a good deal when you don't have all your starters out there, but we did get two back, which is exciting, especially after what they did last week in week one. That defense played pretty remarkable. So it'll be exciting to see them out there this week against the Lions. I think from an injury standpoint, the part that I would be more concerned about is the noise in the Ford Field. That stadium always is rocking, especially when the Lions are there. And I've been there a couple times, and I can tell you it is hard to hear. And we know all the troubles we had last week with the snap count and some of the false starts. So that'd be the big injury I'd be worried about, is just the hearing from a decibel level out there. So that's my thoughts on it. But I think that defense, almost full strength, will be in really good shape this week coming into the Lions' house.
Yeah. Surprisingly though, with being at the away team and the Bears taking a trip to Ben Johnson's old stomping grounds, the false start should actually be better, believe it or not, because they're going to go into silent count, and that's where you see one of the guards probably going to be Jonah Jackson. He'll put his hand out, which means the quarterback's ready for the ball. Then they snap it. It sounds crazy with the louder noise that there should be more false starts. With the silent count, it's really they just wait for that guard and then the center snaps the ball. So they're not listening to a cadence, a clap, or anything. It's just hand out, ball snap. So it actually should help the false starts. But at the same time, though, it also helps the Lions' defensive line, as dangerous as they are. As soon as they see that guard's handout, they know it's about to happen too. So definitely something that we should see less false starts.
Let's hope.
Now it's just about going out there and blocking these the D linemen, especially Aiden Hutchinson, which him and Darnell Wright should have a good matchup this weekend. But other than that, let's jump into just some of a pregame kind of preview. As far as this is a big game for both teams, in my opinion. I mean, these are both division. Both of us are playing back-to-back division games with the Lions playing the Packers last week, and obviously they lost, and us losing to the Vikings. Now both of our teams are in another divisional game, and not only is it important for the division to win this game, but it's also important not to start off 0-2. And
It
you
kind of
know,
hurts my 15-2 prediction if we start off 0-2. That means we got to win out.
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody told you that. But back on track, I was just going to go more along the lines of the two different storylines for both teams, really, and how this could really affect them. As far as it goes for the Bears side of things, we'll start there first. Ben Johnson all offseason was, rainbows and sunshine, coming in, new coach. We got the play caller. And, the first game, definitely a game the Bears should have wrapped up. We won't, spend too much time on that. But now if they lose this game, you're 0-2, staring 0-3 down the barrel. And those thoughts, maybe not for Ben Johnson, but for the players, that thought's going to start creeping in because they're already used to losing. So they're going to start thinking, here we are, different coach, same results, and it could create some problems in the locker room. Obviously, all offseason, the players have talked highly of Ben Johnson. So I think it's going to take a little bit more than 0-2 for it to really get down that way. But that's where the thoughts would start creeping in, even though they did, the Vikings do have a great defense. They were a playoff team last year, 14 wins. The Lions were a 15-win team last year. So it is two tough games to start off. But at the same time, you never want to start 0-2. Not only just due to the division, but just overall, you don't want to be 2 games back to the other NFC teams, for a chance at one of those wild card spots if the Bears happen not to win their division. And then from the Lions side, it gets really scary for them because all offseason, they're hearing how you going to do without both your play callers and Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn not being there. And Lions fans and even the coaching staff have kind of pushed it to the side like, oh, we're going to be fine. It doesn't matter. But after that week one, granted, it was the Packers, and seeing how the Packers are playing, you know, it, it, this weekend will be really a good test for the Lions to really see where they're at. But if the Bears do win this game, then the Lions are going to be sitting there. We just need our coordinators back. Like, the Lions do have all the talent in the world in their roster, but play calling does matter. Whether their fans want to believe it or not, it matters. So it's just a big game for both teams in the division. And, whoever ends up losing this game, it's going to be a tough sledding. And I don't want to make too early of a prediction because it is a long season, but I do feel like whoever loses this game could end up in last place in the division. As shocking as it is, even if the Lions lose, you're probably like, there's no way they get last place. Well, the Vikings would already have a 2-game jump on them. The Packers already would have a 2-game jump. And then whoever wins this game would have a jump on it as well. And on top of that, guess who the Lions have to go face next week away? They got to go play the Ravens. So they're probably staring 0-3 down the barrel. So I just think this is a big game for the division. I know it's crazy to say in week 2, but I really do think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about you mentioned there with Ben Johnson kind of going back to his old stomping grounds there, being with the Lions. So he's got a lot of pride on the plate there that he really wants to win this game, and I think for a couple reasons that you already touched on is one, you don't want losing to kind of creep in. You hear about the new coaching win effect. You start going 0-2 though, and that can get out of hand real easily, especially next week. I believe we're at the Cowboys, and that team they didn't look bad either in their first game of the season. So And that's even with giving up Micah Parsons. What does scare me is I did watch that Thursday night game with Green Bay and the Commanders, and Green Bay, they're no joke. They look pretty intense out there. Jordan Love, definitely in Pro Bowl form. I mean, he looked really good out there. That defense looked great with Micah Parsons. And even the wide receivers, granted, they got an injury to one of their wide receivers with a broken collarbone, but I think they'll bounce back from that, have the next man step up. So that makes the division tough, like you're talking about. But I think just from a moral, not even a moral victory, right? Just a victory in general. The Bears need, because if you think about last year, we lost 10 straight. We won that one in Lambeau at the very end of the year, but we start off losing again. So that's a lot of consecutive losses in a row. And that starts really having a impact on your psyche. Even though we do have some great players on our team, and I think with Caleb, if we can get him going again like we did in the first quarter of last week's game in week one, we could definitely see, potentially a high scoring game. That defense for Detroit didn't look that great up in Lambeau. But then again, I think that could just be the Lambeau effect because that offense was impressive up there. So we'll see. We'll see exactly what Ben Johnson puts together. The one thing about it, he knows those players. So he should know how to game plan for those players over there with the Lions, and should be able to come in with some good scripted plays to start it off and also kind of know what their formations are and what they're going to be doing in the beginning. So he should be able to, basically counteract that to be able to help us have a better chance at winning than if we were just going in there blind with someone who didn't know all the potential plays or tendencies that they do have. So that's what I look forward to, just to start it off to see how he handles that from a leadership and coaching perspective. And then how does he get the players to perform and bounce back after that week one loss? I think that'll be totally key for this matchup this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, like you said, the just seeing the Lions play last week against Green Bay, um, a theme I'm seeing with the Packers, just how it's been going. They start off hot and that offense kind of fizzles down, and their defense is kind of just in great positions with Micah Parsons, but they're also playing with a big lead, so it puts a lot of pressure on the other team's offense to call plays they maybe wouldn't if it was a closer game. Um, so it'll definitely be interesting. And the Lions, for sure, that first week they did not look like the Lions, and that could be due to play calling, or it could just be due to how good Green Bay really, really is. And that's why I feel like this game is a really unknown. And like you said, Ben Johnson, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, he knows them, but they know him. They know what that defense practiced against that offense for 3 years, and they know different looks. They know, their defensive coordinator from the Lions has already spoke this week, and his main thing is don't fall for all the motions and shifts, the eye candy kind of stuff that gets you distracted, and they know that. So it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. But we could kind of go, into that kind of topic, who has the edge on the coordinator side, both offense and defense. And just from my opinion, as much as they do know Ben Johnson is as good as a play caller as there is in the league. He's proven that the past 3 years. Now he has to prove it with the Bears as well, but he knows how to draw up plays to get open, and he knows this defense. And their D coordinator, yeah, he's been with the Lions, but this is his first season calling the plays. So I'd give that edge to Ben Johnson. And then flipping sides of that, going to the defensive side, I'd give Dennis Allen the edge over their play caller. I forget, I know his last name is Moore, and I'm drawing a blank on his first name for the Lions OC, but
Johnny,
is it John Morton? I
I
think
believe
it
it's Johnny
is.
Morton. Yeah,
Yeah. He's only called play calls in the NFL one time, and it was back in 2017 with the Jets. Um, so I'll give the edge to Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen's been calling defense for a decade. He has that experience, and just kind of seeing, what the Green Bay D line, did to the Lions offensive line. The Lions got two new starters in there, and that O line, especially the interior, looked really, there was a lot of pressure getting put. And Micah Parsons, he was lined up in the inside a couple times, but for the most part, he was on the outside. And that Packers D line was still getting all that pressure up the middle. So I think, we're going to be able to see that from our D line this week, especially how they kind of, left off, with last week. I was nervous about the D line, but after the game, I have full confidence. They were getting after him. Now, obviously, you got to do it against another team, show it wasn't a fluke. But if that pressure's still there, I have full confidence in that. But as far as the coordinators really go, I think both of our coordinators have the edge. Now, player wise, I think the Lions have the player wise beat in a majority of positions as far as their talent goes, but you need those play callers.
Yeah, I think you got to look at too, though. Don't forget last year, the Bears with the regime we had played tough against the Lions, right? And that's with an Aaron Glenn defensive coordinator and a Ben Johnson as an OC for the Lions. And you could make an argument that we should at least won one of those games, if not both of them, last year when we played them. So you take pretty much the same players, another year under Caleb's belt. Ben Johnson as the OC, and then Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator, which is both of those. I shouldn't say Ben Johnson's OC, but he is the OC of the Bears, even though he's the
Yeah.
head coach. And then you take Dennis Allen in there. I think you got to give the edge to the Bears based on the trend from last year, and definitely should be able to see them come away with a victory based on that because we shouldn't have any timeout issues, right? I mean, the last time we were at Ford Field, we couldn't call a timeout and had no game management. And beyond that, we left Ford Field without a head coach the last time we played the Lions. So I think the edge goes to the head coach slash OC, as well as our defensive coordinator, and I think too our players, right? I mean, they got another year under their belt, more experience. Caleb Williams, specifically in that, and if we can get 3 quarters of play out of how he played his first quarter last week. I think we put more points on the board. We're not sitting there with the 10-3 lead. Maybe it's a 17 or 21 point lead that we have going into half to kind of really help us out so we don't fall apart in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I do think, I couldn't agree more. I think both of our play callers have the edge in the battles, but I do think not as much. Not saying we're outnumbered crazy talent wise, roster wise, but I do give the edge to the Lions players. They've also have already proven that. Bears players, yeah, we have great players, but we don't have the wins or the good seasons to go along with it. So we're gonna have to see where it goes from here heading into week 2 under Ben Johnson. Um, Kind of wanted to touch a little bit too what some of the press conferences this week out of Ben Johnson. And I know I sent you a text, but I love to see it. It's Friday. He's in there, last day of media before, the game. And we still have reporters asking about the ball not getting kicked out of bounds last week. And Ben Johnson literally tells the guy, can we move on from last week? Like, can we move on? I mean, it's not like these reporters didn't already ask this question. It was asked the day after the game, Tuesday, in that press conference, and he answered it. He addressed it, gave the thoughts behind it, and he's even admitted, I was greedy. I wanted 5 extra yards for the field position when they made him go 3 and out, and that's why the goal was to kick the ball out of bounds in the back of the end zone, but it didn't happen. And you love to see the accountability from him, and you also like to see his mindset through it. He knew he could kick it out of bounds, and he also knew he could kick it out of the back of the end zone. Ultimately, he wanted those 5 yards, but I just think it's cool. He's not letting this media walk over him, and I like to see that because he's answered the questions. And at the end of the day, it's Friday. Like we play the Lions in 2 days, and you're still asking about the week 1 game. Just how the coaches tell their players, hey, flip the page, we're on to the next week. Same thing with you, reporters. Flip the page, we're on to Detroit. Stop asking about last week. You can maybe bring it up when we play the Vikings later on in the season leading up to the game, but right now it's not the right time. And I like how he's kind of done that. And
I
then,
like how he I like how he did it too, but I'm going to be honest. I think he came up a little short. Granted, I love the way he handled the media. Hey, let's move on, turn the page, short term memory, right? Forget about it. But he came in and we kind of we touched on this the other day. He came in with the whole accountability phrase, right? You saw it you saw it yourself, and everyone out there saw it themselves. Kyle Shanahan cuts a kicker, right, who has not been doing well for him, and then he got Aaron Glenn, his fellow peer when he was in the Lions, who cut his wide receiver who cost him the game last week with that fumble. And so I expected a little bit more out of Ben Johnson when it came to our kicker. At least, we did sign, Moody to the practice squad. I think that sent a little bit of a message, as you and I talked about earlier in the week, that basically putting, Santos on notice that, hey, you got a little bit of competition behind you. You need to do something. But while he talked tough, the words sounded good in the press conference. I think he came up a little short by not truly sending an accountability message to Santo, especially with the botched kick at the end and also missing the field goal. So that's just my opinion. I know we differ on that, but I would have liked to have seen him probably cut Santo after that game just to send the message in that locker room that no positions are guaranteed and you got to perform. Winners keep score, and I always like to say winners get to eat. And unfortunately, they let Santo keep eating. Although we'll see what happens after this week. Maybe he redeems himself, or maybe Moody's our kicker by week 3.
No, I was about to say too. It's a little kick returner. There's plenty of them back there. He was their punt returner. He was a kick returner. You can put someone back there real easy. Whereas a kicker, you only have one roster spot for it for a game day. It's a little bit different, but I still think the message got through, like you said, with the Bears signing Moody to the practice squad. It's letting Cairo know, hey, you're not safe. You're not our only option. We're bringing in a guy that's one. He's more than likely just there to keep Cairo on his heels and make sure he's, taking everything serious and know there's a little bit of competition behind him where if he doesn't perform, like you said, they might give Jake Moody a shot, especially he was a third round draft pick. He's still young. Sometimes a change of scenery helps kickers and, they get to a different environment and, suddenly things click again. So I think he still delivered the message perfectly. And like I said, my side of it, it's just two different positions. It's a lot easier to cut a kick returner because there's plenty of them back there where they can just go catch a ball and run it upfield. But when it comes to a kicker, you got one on your team and that's it. So I think it's a little bit different, but the message still got across the same. Um, but let's kind of jump into the offensive side of the ball. Some things that you might want to see differently this week. I know for me, just starting off, I definitely want to see, Jonah Jackson and Drew Dahlman have a little bit of a better game this week. Not that I, take PFF scores and, look at them deeply, but they were the two lowest linemen and it was by a long shot. That's where a lot of the pressure came from our offensive line last week against Minnesota was Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson. So I do want to see them have a bounce back game. Should be a little bit easier of D linemen to guard to block this week. I think a lot of the pressure this week is going to be on Darnell Wright because he's going to have Aiden Hutchinson coming at him, and it'll be a good matchup. I've known in the past it's been pretty, Hutchinson wins his reps, Darnell Wright wins his reps, so it's pretty back and forth. But I think that's where the spotlight's going to be. But I do just want to see a better game from Dahlman and Jonah Jackson this week as far as letting that pressure get up the middle because if the pressure is coming from the DNs, Caleb can step up in the pocket. But if you're giving up that pressure, Caleb has nowhere to go, and that's where that pocket collapses on you. And, it's hard to get out of, even as athletic as Caleb is. And he showed last week, running around. It can get really hard, and that's where you can get swallowed up. So I do just want to see a better game out of the linemen. How about you? Anything you're looking for out of the offense that you want to see improve going into week 2?
Yeah, biggest thing I want to see is the accuracy, right? I mean, I know we talked about Santo and potentially costing us the game, right, with those 2 errors. But I think what really cost us the game, and we talked about this before, is national media is always on Caleb, right? And he's got to be the reason we win the game. And we can't be looking for excuses to lose the game, whether that's reps and calls or missed field goals or things of that nature. So, I went back and kind of rewatched the game again yesterday as I was analyzing some different things out there. And as you take a look at it, there's a couple of those plays I wish we had back, and I'm sure he does too. And whether there's some argument whether it was his accuracy or the receiver not running their route correctly. And so either way, I just want to see that accuracy better. We have a bunch of offensive weapons, and it's tough when you only see some of those first and second round draft picks only getting a couple targets here and there, and then obviously the missed balls that happen where we can extend drives. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking for is just the accuracy out of it. And on top of it, not to just hold Caleb accountable, but looking at the receivers too. You got to run those routes. It does appear on a couple of those missed plays that the receiver was supposed to be in a different spot. And so then I got to ask, why is a tenured vet who's been a pretty good receiver for us over the long haul, why was he not in the spot he was supposed to be at? And I don't think he's going to be allowed to break off a lot of those routes going forward. I think there's probably some stern conversation about you need to be where you're supposed to be. So when the ball's there, you're there to grab it. And that would have been a big difference in the game, right? We wouldn't even be talking about a kicker at that point, probably because we were talking about more touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, I think Declan, I know exactly what your play you're talking about. I think you're talking about the one at the end of the game where DJ Moore kind of got through and he was supposed to be running a certain route and ended up obviously seeing it was blown coverage and decided to run, to the end zone on kind of a go route, a seam route on the outside. And Declan Doyle addressed it pretty well. He did say DJ ran the wrong route. However, there was blown coverage. And in that instance, that's where him and Caleb kind of that chemistry comes into place where they got to know and be on the same page. It's all right that it was blown coverage and DJ did do the right thing. It's just more about, like Caleb kind of addressed it too. He needed to put it on more of a line right there because that safety was still coming over, even though it was blown coverage. And he kind of floated it. And then on top of it too, I think DJ holds a little bit of fault in it too, because DJ kind of throws his hands up. And then right after, once he throws his hands up, he's like jogging. And then he's like, oh, he actually threw me the ball. Let me start running again. Because there's a couple of, Pro Bowl or Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have done some review tape on it. And they kind of agree that Caleb, if DJ was running the same speed as when he put his hands up, that ball would have been right on the money in that end zone. But DJ kind of put his hands up, slowed down, then it was like, oh crap, the ball is actually coming. And it looked more of like an overthrow. But as far as your point goes, the accuracy with those other plays, I think that was a lot more on Caleb. And Caleb did address it. It's about getting his feet where his eyes are. You hear OCs talk about it a lot, as well as quarterbacks. Their eyes need to be matched up with their feet. And Caleb's eyes were often in the right spot. It's just his feet weren't set in the right position, and that causes some of those accuracy issues. So I'm sure it was harped on a lot this week in practice with Ben Johnson. Just slow down, because a lot of the times too, it did look like he rushed a little bit. Because to granted, the two plays that come to mind with the accuracy is the one to Cole Kmet and the one to DJ Moore, both the same routes, but he kind of rushed them, and they were crucial plays in the game. And like you said, Caleb wishes he has those back. So hopefully this game he gets some of those opportunities back and he shows that, he learned from it. But I definitely do want to see the accuracy improve for Caleb. Obviously, you see it every game. Quarterbacks overthrow people, especially on the deeper routes. It happens, but it's about limiting those, and especially the slant routes. That just can't happen at an NFL level. The ball's at least got to hit the receiver in their hands, and then from there you can debate if it was accurate. The receiver should have caught it, XYZ. But in this case, Caleb did just completely overthrow them and led them a little bit too far, where it didn't even give them a chance to get their hand on the ball. And those are dangerous throws too, especially down the middle, because those are ones where you can get clean interceptions off of with those safeties or cornerbacks deeper back there. And luckily that didn't happen in that instance, but still, I agree. Definitely want to see that cleaned up from Caleb. And I think he is, because let's be honest, I don't want to talk about last week too much, but he started off a quarter and a half of that game and he was on the money. Like, it was really evident. It was like, wow, the Ben Johnson effect is real. And then it kind of, the blitzes started, piling up, and it got to him, and it kind of started to mess everything up in his rhythm and timing. And now we just need to see that kind of first quarter and a half, play out for a longevity of the game. And
Four
obviously,
quarters.
Yeah, obviously you're going to have drives where your offense stalls out, a 3-and-out. It happens, but it's about limiting those and playing damage control because last week there was too many 3-and-outs. Like the first half, I don't think we had any, and then the second half we had like 6 or 7. That's
Yep.
it's one thing, kind of to start off like that and then finish strong, but starting strong and finishing bad is a recipe for disaster where those games where you have leads get blown and you let teams back into the game that shouldn't be in the game. So definitely
That'd be
want to
the
see.
second thing. That'd be the
Yeah.
second thing I look for in this game is the run game, right? I think you know, DeAndre Swift had some great runs, right? I think you look at some of the things, especially when he bounced it outside. It's the inside, the north and south runs where he struggles with. He doesn't. I don't think he's not that type of power back. I think he's a little bit more razzle dazzle. But that goes to Ben Johnson and the play calling, right? Kyle Monangai, we got to get him in there, right? He seems to be a little bit more of a power back as far as strength and maybe being able to get through those holes. So I think as we call out the game plan to kind of relieve a little bit of pressure off of Caleb Williams as well, is get that run game going strong. Kind of like how Ben Johnson did when he was with the Lions with Sonic and Knuckles, right? You had Gibbs and Montgomery, clearly two different style of backs, do different things. Jameer Gibbs is probably one of the fastest running backs out there in the league, and I think while Swift doesn't match that speed. I think he fits that Jameer Gibbs role a little bit, and you got to look at Kyle Monangai as maybe fitting in that David Montgomery role, where you can just kind of go straight up the gut and get those 4 or 5 yards, the hard yards in between the tackles. But that I didn't see those called right, or if we did when we did call them, it was with Swift, not with Monangai in there. So that's what I would look forward as well. On top of that accuracy piece, and I think if you get that run game going, it's really going to help out Caleb and ease a little bit of pressure off of them so that we can continue to maintain and sustain the drives out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, just along those lines as well. I know Ben Johnson already addressed in the media this week. A lot of people did ask him, you praise Monangai so much, but we didn't see him get one carry out there in the game against the Vikings. And he took full accountability. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I didn't really realize it till after the game, but I got to call more plays for him and get him in the game. I know we saw him in the passing game, I think on 2 passes where he caught him, but let's see him in the running game as well. Because like you said, I love Swift on the outside, but those hard runs up the middle, that first tackler more than not always brings him down, and they're 1 to 2 yard gains, and those are kind of drive killers too. They hurt, like especially too. It's one thing they're happening here and there, but when it happens every play, you're trying to run up the middle, you know, it hurts. So I think Ben Johnson will make it an emphasis this week to get Monangai the ball, at least give him touches where he can see what he can do in the game. And I'm curious to see it too, because like we talked about in our post game show after the Vikings, he played all preseason. Ben Johnson had nothing but high praise. He's like, he does the right things. He goes about his business the right way. Like, and I think one time or not, it said it's like he's been in the league a couple years already by how well he's doing things. So I'd love to see him get some touches and see what he can do with the ball. And then obviously, kind of like what I said in the beginning too, we need to see that help from the O line as well. It's not just on the running backs.
Mhm.
We need to see some bigger holes get opened up where there's clear running lanes that they can get through and make guys miss. But definitely excited to see the offense this week again. I'm hoping to see some redemption. They started the game great. Now let's, like you said, at least 3 quarters. Let's see that panned out and finish what we started, and not start good, but end slow. Let's see this kind of go through a whole game of good drives. Even if there's no points, let's see some sustained drives later in the game that give our
Chew up the
defense the
clock.
rest they need. And like you said, chew up the clock, put the pressure on the Lions to call plays they might not be calling, especially like you said with Morton. Like, he's pretty inexperienced. And last week against the Packers, there's many times where it just looked like very basic check down passes and nothing too crazy. Like, I don't think we really saw. I think there was one play to Laporta that was over 20 yards, but the rest of it was like 5 yard passes. So let's put him to work and let our defense eat. But let's transition over onto the defensive side of the ball. Some things we're looking for this week.
Before we jump there, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Got Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell. Who calls more who goes for it more on fourth down this week?
I mean, that's just going to depend on the scenario. I'd probably say the Lions just because I will say this. They're they're more where it's the 4th and 2 and 4th and 3s. They probably have the better shot at it just because of the, like you said, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They're a they're a pretty good threat when they're on the field and a lot to account for. And not that Ben Johnson can't draw up good plays because we saw a perfect 4th down play drew up last week, and we've already talked about enough, but Caleb misfires. I think Ben Johnson might reel it back just a little bit, especially too early in the game. If there's points to be had, I think he's going to take the points and just get the momentum flowing in the right direction. Because part of those 4th downs too, if they're not picked up and we're in the opponent's territory, the offense can start to hang their head. Oh, we could have had 3 points, this, that, and the other. So maybe I think the 4th down thing we're going to see progress over the season. But right now, while they're getting things established, I think I could see the Lions going for it more on 4th down this game.
Do you
Although,
think
go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think, I kind of think it's almost like a father-son game, right? I mean, granted, they're not father-son with Campbell and with Johnson, but he did work for him, right? And he's coming back. They're now peers, so to speak, or you could use the scenario of a father son, right? When a son turns 18 and he's going to challenge his dad a little bit. Is this the game where Ben Johnson tries to throw the kitchen sink at the old guy who used to be his boss?
Just
Uh,
beats
and
the shit. Yeah.
well, but here's the thing, right? There's the old saying, right? You can never beat your dad, right? There's dad strength. Although I don't know if that's true or not, but it would be an interesting scenario just to wonder how his game plan is and kind of is it more of a conservative slash cautious approach as he comes in there, or is it I'm a man now, I'm gonna come in here and beat my old man and show him how it's done. I don't know. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, and not even just back to the Lions days. Before this, they were both on the Miami coaching staff back in the day, and that's where they first met each other. Um, Yeah, I mean, I could see that look on the game. I just think they're two, good friends, and they're going to go out there before the game. It's going to be all handshakes, hugs, how you doing? And once that kick hits off, you're gonna see that, like you're kind of saying, that father son little, yeah, I'm the big guy now, and you're gonna
Yep.
see that out of Ben Johnson, and we'll see. I am, week one we didn't see any trick plays, but I can guarantee you one's coming out this week, especially against his former team. And it might even come at a time when you least expect it. But I can see one for sure coming out this week just to, give the Lions a little love and be like, yep, I still got some plays up my sleeve that I didn't show you guys. But you can definitely see, I definitely expect at least one trick play coming out this week. I don't care if we're down or up. I see it coming.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun game. I think there's so many storylines in this game that, not only the division standing, but, uh, old boss going against his old offensive coordinator. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be exciting. It'll be more fun to watch, more different storylines to watch than just watching the game. So there'll be a lot of little
Yeah,
storylines underneath.
I think another hidden storyline before we jump into the defense too is Morton John Ben Johnson did ask Morton to come over and be his OC and wanted him to come. And Morton said, no, I'm going to stay here and call the plays. And it's almost kind of like, when you look at that, obviously, for your coaching career, it's better to take an OC spot where you're calling the plays, where if he was here, he would have just been kind of the Declan Doyle where you're working with the offense. But Morton kind of gave him the shoulder shrug and said, I'm going to stay over here. I can, what's that one song? Anything you can do, I can do better type of deal. Um, and it's a little interesting, but let's hop into the defense. I think, there's a lot of things we're looking for on the offensive side of the ball. On the defense, I think it's real simple. I just want to see 4 quarters. And granted, the offense didn't help them out as much last game with, sustaining drives, but I do want to see, their energy and their stamina go a little bit longer this game and carry into that 4th quarter. But for 3 quarters, especially like we already talked about, missing 3 backups, I think the defense looks amazing, electric. I mean, as always, we're at least as Bears fans, there's one thing we can count on, and that's a good defense. So I just think for them, I do just want to see it stretched out for 4 quarters. Can't really complain last week either. They got a takeaway, not just a takeaway, a pick six. Want to see those 3 sacks kind of continue into this week. Let's get another 2 or 3 sacks this game. Keep adding them up. Keep it. I just want to, maybe as far as I'm going, I just want to see the same consistency we saw last week carry into this week outside of the 4th quarter. What about you?
Oh, there's that we talked about it week one, right? Pregame that I wasn't really worried about defense, right? I felt good about what we had. I know we talked about the laundry list of inactives and stuff like that, but I felt pretty strong about the defense going in there, especially that line. I'm pretty impressed with that line, especially in the Vikings game. For 3 quarters, they did a great job. I think two things will happen in this game. One, I think they're going to go in with more continuity because they've already played together one game and seen what they're able to accomplish. Two, I think with Jaylon and Edwards coming back, you're going to see another boost of confidence because they're back in the game as well. And especially, if Jalen can, arguably he should be better than what Wright did last week, right, against one of the number one receivers in the league. So I think he's going to want to show off a little bit. So I think with that defensive line getting pressure, we're going to see exactly why we have Jaylon Johnson in the backfield. Granted, hopefully he's in football shape and able to play and move around and not re-injure himself. But I think that's going to be pretty interesting watching them with them back in there. And I think you're going to see 4 quarters of play out of them. We're going to play the Lions pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylon Johnson is, a beast, probably the best player on our defense, our defense. And I expect, maybe he's not going to get a pick six like Nashawn Wright. You're dealing with a little bit more of a veteran quarterback that knows how to take care of the ball and make smarter decisions. But I still think we're going to see vintage Jaylon Johnson lock in, whoever he's up. His guy might get a catch or two, but nothing, nothing crazy. And, with TJ Edwards coming back, I mean, every game last year, he led us in tackles. The guy is a beast. Noah Sewell, don't get me wrong, did play a good game, especially in the run game, but the passing game is where he kind of showed why, maybe in the past regimes, he never really got that full, you're good to go in there for some plays. And due to, what Kevin O'Connell did and getting those mixed matches out there with a running back on him and him kind of getting cooked. So TJ Edwards is a lot more faster and a lot better in passing coverage. So it's going to be great to have him back. I'm really, let down with Kyler Gordon not being out there. I just can't wait till the first game we get to see him in this defense because he's almost like the Caleb Williams of the defense in Dennis Allen's eyes. He has Kyler Gordon all over the field, playing different positions, running off the edge, blitzing up the middle. Like, I'm really excited once we get Kyler back. Hopefully, that nickel corner steps back up with McLeod and, plays a good game. He's going to have a tough job with St. Brown, so it's going to be a lot harder this week, but hopefully, he can step up in a big way like he did last week. But yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to get TJ Edwards back. I love the man. He's a great tackler, especially in space. There's so many times last year where he's one-on-one with a running back, which is not an easy task, and he makes the open field tackle 9 times out of 10. So super excited to get him back. but yeah, like I don't think there's too much of the defense. My big things as far as what I want to see, I keep an eye on Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. Yeah,
Yeah.
St. Brown and Jamison Williams. I'm not worried about our DBs and our back seven, but those two running backs can get huge, and I mean huge chunk plays. And the Packers did a really good job last week of whoever had the Jameer Gibbs responsibility in the passing game, they were always right there. And he wasn't getting any yards after catching that game. And I want to see the same thing this week. I don't want to see him shed a tackle, and because that's when he gets dangerous and he can make, what should be 5-yard gains into 30-yard gains. So my biggest worry is just, hey, shut down these running backs. Don't let them, make all these plays and do crazy things extra after the ball. And I think we'll be just fine um, on defense. I just think more so, like you said, I think I'm still have a little bit more concerns about the offense at this moment, and just want to see them put together a whole game, kind of like our defense did last week, and see that. I want to see more complementary football from both sides. I want to see them pick each other up when the other one's down. The defense kind of did that last week, and our offense couldn't ever, help them in return. So I want to see a lot more better balance of that going into this week. You know, when the defense is helping out and the offense is down, there needs to be a time where that offense comes back alive and helps the defense out and gives them at least a breather. So I think that's really what I'm interested in.
You want
Um,
another fun storyline?
well, what's that?
Does the name Morton mean anything to you?
No,
Not at all?
no,
You sure?
positive.
Who was our running game coordinator last year?
Oh, Chad Morton, the running backs coach.
And Johnny Morton is who?
Is it his dad?
It's his brother.
Oh,
They're siblings. I just learned that myself, I ain't gonna lie, but I'm like, Morton, I know that name. Why do I know
I was about
Morton?
to say our running backs coach was Chad Morton last year.
Yeah, and, so, yeah, they're siblings, so kind of interesting the I'm sure he probably reached out and said, "Hey, what can he give me? Can he give me a little insight, little brotherly love?" Granted, it's a whole different offense, but Johnny Morton's a little familiar with it too.
I was
That'll
about
be
to,
interesting.
yeah. I was about to say he definitely knows about DeAndre Swift, but Cal Monunga is kind of he's still a chess piece out there because he didn't get to run the ball. So and the Lions aren't going to have any tape on his tendencies, what he likes to do. So it could be, who knows, maybe it was all part of Ben Johnson's plan, a little gamesmanship, because in reality, the game plan they had in for that game last week, it was the right one. It just wasn't executed, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what ultimately led to the loss. Um, but, why don't we hop in like we did last week? We'll give, our game predictions, defensive MVP, offensive MVP. I'll let you start it off this week. Go ahead. Give us what you got.
All right, I'm gonna give the Bears 27-20. They win. In
Remember to no Caleb Williams offense MVP, but do predict his stat line.
I really wanted to pick him as my MVP though, because I think
You
he's gonna
can't.
bounce back.
You can't. It's just like, the favorites of, sports betting. There you got your favorites out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just
I just really wanna see him get the game ball this week, kinda like, McCarthy got one last week. I'd love to see a little locker room action with him getting the game ball because he bounced back, you know, he was accurate throughout the whole game. They
yeah,
were all
maybe
on the same page.
maybe he goes 13 for 20 and 130 yards and 2 touchdowns and gets player of the NFC, maybe.
Yeah,
Doubt it. That would never happen.
that was a little wonky if you ask me. All right, so 27-20, Bears win. I think it's gonna be uh, a 2-minute drive, fourth quarter. That's how we win it. Kind of a heart attack game again. And then as far as offensive MVP, I went with Loveland last week, but he only had 2 catches. So I'm not gonna pick Loveland this week. Let's go with DeAndre Swift. Let's go. He's coming back to one of the places he used to play as well. And he is going to rush for 103 yards, and he's gonna have 1 touching. That's my
One
offensive
touchdown.
1 touchdown.
Okay, what
And
about the defensive side of the ball?
defense, Jaylon
I
Johnson,
was about to
comeback
say.
game. And he is, I think he has at least an interception minimum. Um,
Dang.
yeah, at least 1 interception with Jaylon Johnson. It's his comeback game. I mean, he's been practicing so much with his podcast that for surely he can at least have 1 interception because I think he just did another one the
Yeah,
other
with
day.
the pivot. Yep.
Yeah, that guy, he does more podcasts than he does practicing. But I think he'll be the defensive MVP of the game. And then
Caleb Williams stat line. Go.
I gotta go. You think about he was over 250 in all-purpose yards last week. He had the
Yeah, I think he
rushing
was
touchdown, and
almost
he was
I think
almost 300.
I was about to say I think he was right underneath 300 because I know he had 58 rushing yards, I want to say, on 6 attempts. He was 210. Yeah, he's about 270.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 300 again, like I predicted last week.
Passing
And I'm
yards are all purpose.
all-purpose yards 300.
Okay. Completion
And I'm gonna
percentage.
go with a 65% completion percentage. He's gonna improve by 5% from last week, and he will have 2 touchdowns and a stat I don't want him to have. Well, I do want him to have it. He's gonna have an interception this week, but it's gonna be a good one because he's letting the ball go. I think we all wanna see him let the ball go and, trust his receivers and just get it down the field, and not take the sack. So I think he's gonna limit a sack, but he is gonna have an interception. We're not gonna like it, but I think from a progressive standpoint, I'll be okay with that interception.
Yeah. Um, I'll start off with my score predictions. I think this is going to be I do think this is going to be a close game. And like you kind of said, it is going to be down to the wire type of feel to it. And I think Cairo's going to get his redemption this week. I'm going a 28-27 Bears win. Literally every game in this division last year was a nail biter for the most part, whether that was the Bears coming down 2 scores late in the fourth quarter type of comeback. But I think this one's going to really come down to the wire, and Kyra's going to get his redemption. I do see it. It's a good kind of week to, let that week one kind of get out of his mind and just move on for the rest of the season with a clear mind. So definitely got Cairo walking it off 28-27. And I don't have it being an easy chip shot either. It's going to be a 48-53 in between that range, and he's going to knock that thing through. And everyone on Twitter is going to be back to, oh my God, Cairo, we love you. As far as my offensive MVP goes, I'm actually going to take Colston Loveland this week. The reason being a little insight last week, Ben Johnson did admit that, the tight ends for the Minnesota game plan were more in the blocking scheme with as much pressure as Brian Flores sends. And that's ultimately why we didn't get to see the tight ends catch a lot of balls. This week, however, I do have Colston Loveland having his welcome to the NFL game where he's just going to go crazy. And I actually see Colston Loveland not only having a good amount of yards up into the 60-70 range, I see a tutty coming out of him as well.
Is this
I
kinda like his homecoming as well since he is from, Michigan alum? He's coming back to Michigan and having a great game?
It definitely could be. I think part of it though too is just last week they weren't really part of the overall passing game plan. They were a lot more of the run and pass blocking game plan. So I see him having a big game this week. Um, I really do. I hope to see it too because he's electric when he gets the ball in his hands as well. Um, I do for my defensive MVP. This is a hard one. I don't want to pick Jaylon just so I don't copy you, but I do think Jalen's going to have a good game. I will go back with our other returning player, TJ Edwards. I'm guaranteeing a sack out of him with Dennis Allen crafting up some of the blitzes. I could see a TJ Edwards sack. He is going to lead our team in tackles like he usually does on that defense. Maybe a couple tackle for losses in there. But I see him being our MVP, maybe a peanut punch in there. You never know, but I got TJ Edwards as the MVP. And for Caleb Williams, I think that completion percentage is going to go up a lot from last week. Last week, he was at a 60%, but after the first half, he was at about an 89% completion percentage and it fell apart. He's going to get over that Ben Johnson 70% this week. I can see a low 71, 72, but he is going to get over that 70% threshold. And I do agree. I think he's going to have a 3-touchdown passing game here in this game. Maybe two with my prediction because it doesn't really work out with the Cairo walk-off. But maybe I might need to change my score prediction to a 31-28. And Caleb Williams is going to have 3 passing touchdowns. And I do agree with you. I think Swift or Mononga, one of the two, is going to get in the end zone this weekend. Actually, now thinking about it too, I know I'm kind of going off the rails here, but Roschon Johnson is back. And when they get in that goal line, he is their guy and has been in practice. So matter of fact, I'm having a Roschon Johnson rushing touchdown too in this game in the goal line scenario. But I do think he's going to be in the 71%. And as far as passing yards go, I expect him to kind of be a little bit over what he was last week. I'd say probably 230, 240 range, 70, 72 completion percentage, 3 tutties. Good game from him. Probably is the MVP, but I don't like it's just such an obvious. The quarterbacks always get all the love. Let's show some love to other players.
Do you think, by chance, because we know the game that Dio and Bango had last week, do you think Montez shows up this week? Do you think he's like, hey, don't forget about me?
I'll be honest, Montez ain't showing up this week. He's going against Penei Sewell. He's a Pro Bowler. He's probably one of the best young right tackles in the league. I do want to see him get some pressure for sure. I don't know about a sack though, and I don't see the impact that Dio had last week. Dio was, especially that first half, every time there was pressure, it was Dio Dangbo. Like,
yeah,
you're not going to see that.
We had 3 sacks last week.
Yeah, 3. One by Dio.
So over under this week, 3 sacks.
I think it pushes 3 again.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a nice solid push, and I think a lot more of the sacks this week are going to come from that interior, though. I think 2 of them from Jervon, or if Grady Jarrett is there, I can see maybe Jarrett getting one. But I think a lot of it's going to come from that interior. Like I said, the Lions have some young players first year starting in that interior, and the Packers tore them up last week in that interior. So I can see a lot of interior pressuring more than the edge rushers. I can see Dio having another good game because they got another tackle out there that's, fairly new to this lineup. And if Dio comes out there and does his thing again, I mean, it'll be great to see, because last week, I mean, he couldn't have had a better performance. Almost had a couple of strip sacks, but for the most part, he played a great game. So I'd love to see that roll over into this week. But with Montez, like you said, I think he still gets some hurries, maybe some pressures on Goff. But as far as the sack goes with Penei Sewell there, I don't think so. Penei Sewell is a good lineman. I think Micah, even with Micah lining up, I know Micah got some pressures, but he never was able to fully sack Jared Goff. So I just think Penei Sewell's a good lineman out there.
My last question. You said Cairo's going to be the hero, right? Yep. If he's not the hero, is he taking the bus back versus the plane? Do we leave a player in Detroit like we left a coach there last year?
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if he has, another crucial miss in the game, I do think they won't be scared to officially put Jake Moody out there and actually see if he can fix. Because listen, as much as Jake Moody's a good signing, he actually is struggling bad. Like, I saw something with his stats. He's like 4 for 11 past 50 yards, and then he's like 6 for 12 inside 40 yards. So
yeah, he didn't get cut for no reason.
I'm not saying
he's the answer, but
I do. I like Cairo, man. It sucks it happened week 1, especially the heartbreaking loss. But Cairo is an accurate kicker. His leg definitely, and maybe that's I mean, that could be a reason too. They bring in Jake Moody. I don't know how it works. Obviously, you're not going to dress two kickers, but
No,
maybe, yeah, I was about to say too, maybe you bring him along for the longer ones in the game. I don't know, but you definitely wouldn't trust two kickers. That's just not smart. Part of that 53 game day roster. But yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely excited though when this is a must-win game. Week 1 was a must-win just because of the rookie quarterback, but now it is a must-win for the Lions, even though it probably shouldn't be because one, a divisional game, and like we already talked about from the top of the episode, you don't want to be 0-2 in the division, let alone 0-2 on the season. You're going to be playing a lot of catch up throughout the year, and the Packers got past 2 of their harder games in their schedule, and now they're going to be pretty free flowing. And it's about making sure you can stay close to that. So hopefully, when we face them later in the season, there's a chance where we can jump into that conversation and maybe take the division. But as far as it goes right now, that Packers got the division on free flow, and I hate to say that, but they look good.
they look good.
And the only thing I think can stop them right now is some injuries, which they are already starting to add up for them. And you never want to wish injuries. I'd rather beat a team at full strength than seeing them at a weaker team. But yeah, big game. I don't got any more thoughts. If you got any other final game day thoughts heading into the game, go ahead.
I'm happy football's still here. It's week 2. The sad thing about it is we're 1 week closer to the end of the season. I just hope we end on a winning note with this game, and I look forward to seeing what Ben Johnson can do going against his old head coach, and hope he pulls off some magic there in Ford Field. And Bears are tougher than Lions, anyways, aren't they? Like if I had to fight against one, I would probably choose a lion over a bear.
Oh
Bears scare
no,
the
they're both.
crap out of me.
I mean, the Bears we saw last week in Gatlinburg weren't so scary, but
Hey,
the
they scared me.
Lions, yeah. But yeah, no. And tomorrow we will have a post game show. Last week, since it was a night game, we didn't get it released till the following day, but we will have that post game reaction. Hopefully, it's a good reaction. But we will have that up tomorrow, tomorrow evening. For now, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure down below, put your score predictions, your MVPs. We'd love to hear them. And maybe even talk about some of them in our post game show tomorrow after the game. But that'll do it for this episode. And for now, bear
Bear
down.
down.